The disappearance of the human species started with a signal that was first picked up on June 14th, 2029 by the FAST telescope in southwestern China, also known as the Eye of the Sky. It was the largest single-dish radio telescope on planet Earth, and they built it to search deep space for pulsars. The collapsed cores of dead stars spinning hundreds of times per second, sweeping beams of radiation across the galaxy like cosmic lighthouses. The signal they picked up pulsed on a perfect rhythm every 1.37 seconds. The scientists knew the signal came from far away, and all of the signs pointed to it being a pulsar, so they logged it and moved on. It was a while later before the signal was picked up again, this time at the Alien Telescope Array in California, a whole field dedicated to searching for extraterrestrial intelligence. When scientists took a closer look, they realized it was something out of the ordinary. It seemed to be following a pattern that didn't appear to be natural. They ran a lot of tests to find the odds of this happening by chance. And the answer was 1 in 10 trillion. Humans had received first contact. The smartest minds on Earth and the most powerful computers available began cracking the code. Over the course of months, with every new cycle, the humans learned more about the mysterious messengers and why they reached out. They wanted them to build something. Many believed this signal to be a gift, instructions that would cure a disease, give them a blueprint for clean energy, or maybe even the ability to travel the stars. It's not clear how much the messengers knew about mankind, but they must have known that human curiosity would lead them to build whatever the instructions told them to. Over time, it became clear they were building a machine that would harness lots of energy. Scientists, military personnel, and governments across the world began working on building it. People protested, they rioted in the streets, concerned over those in power blindly building something without knowing its true purpose. But those in power believed they had to, because if they didn't, someone else would. The same logic that drove their species to build nuclear weapons, venture into space, and build artificial intelligence. Everyone moved forward out of fear what would happen to them if someone else made it first. When the machine was ready, it was clear they had built some sort of energy device. Something that could draw immense power from quantum vacuum fluctuations. Something that could solve climate change and the global energy crisis simultaneously. Something that could save their planet. When it first turned on, there was a hum, then a bright flash of light, and in one single moment, every human being on Earth suddenly disappeared, and they never came back.
It is undeniable that humans have had a bigger impact on our planet than any other species that has ever called it home. And in a shockingly short amount of time, we have profoundly reshaped the Earth and altered over 75% of its land surface. This impact is so intense that scientists argue we have entered into a new geological epoch in Earth's history, where human activity has become the dominant influence on our planet's climate, ecosystems, and geology. But what I wanted to know while making this video is how much of that is permanent. If every single human being vanished from the face of the Earth right now, like they did in my little weapons-inspired short story, a Thanos snap, but 100% of the population, how long would it take for our lights to turn off, nature to reclaim our cities, for the Earth to wipe away every last trace of us? In millions or billions of years from now, would there be any evidence of us left for some future advanced civilization to find? I even spoke with a professor of biology at Oxford to see if there were any animals alive right now video that could one day become Earth's next dominant species. And his answer might really surprise you.
But I would love the idea that they would re-evolve, or something like them would re-evolve, and they'd use their dexterous trunks to solve problems.
We're gonna take a look at all of these questions in this video, but before we do, we are gonna walk through what would happen to our planet if all humans were to suddenly disappear. And yes, I did hire another voice actor because the sound of my voice annoys me sometimes. So let's watch it together.
Within the first hour, power grids begin to fail as fuel supplies run out and safety systems shut down generators. Without operators, coal and natural gas plants trip offline. Wind turbines and solar panels would keep producing electricity briefly, but with no one managing the grid, the network would begin its stabilization. Hour 6. It takes only a few hours before city lights begin to go dark. For the first time in over a century, major cities fall completely silent. Hour 24. Nuclear reactors automatically start shutting down into safe mode. 24 hours without humans consuming the power being generated by the plant. Mechanical systems automatically engage to halt nuclear reactions, but uranium continues releasing energetic particles as it decays. Hour 36. Less than 2 days after humans disappeared, New York City's subway tunnels would begin to flood. And by day 3, Big Ben would ring for the last time, since it needs to be manually rewound every 72 hours. By the end of the first week, pets and livestock begin to die. The dogs that are able to escape their homes begin scavenging for food, while domesticated farm animals like sheep, pigs, and cattle face rapid die-offs. Due to the lack of electricity across the globe, security measures at all of the world's 440 nuclear power plants begin to fail, setting off a chain of explosions and releasing radioactive contamination across every continent. Hundreds of Fukushima-level events happening all at once. By the end of the first month, chemical plants and refiners begin to fail, leaking, catching fire or exploding. Areas near industrial sites see significant toxic contamination, and in the short term, the environment gets worse in many locations before it gets better. By the end of the first year without humans, pioneer plants begin to colonize cities. Seeds that have been waiting in cracks and pavement begin germinating without competition. Moss spreads across roads, and nature starts reclaiming the world. Las Vegas is the last city in the world to finally go dark after being kept on for a full year without humans thanks to the Hoover Dam. The first satellites in low Earth orbit gradually start decaying and losing altitude before burning up in the planet's atmosphere. By the end of the first decade without humans, the transformation is no longer subtle. 10 consecutive winters of burst pipes, frost heave, and unchecked water damage have gutted buildings from the inside out. The streets themselves have broken apart, shattered by tree roots that have spent a decade pushing through every crack that the frost and water opened up. Most wooden structures across the world have collapsed from rot and termites. 50 years after the disappearance of humans, the ozone layer would be fully healed from any of the damage humans left behind. Bridges across the world will have started to collapse. Coral reefs across the planet would be in the early stages of genuine recovery, but it will be centuries before they are fully healed. And even though humans have been gone for 5 decades, the world will still be warming due to human-caused climate change. 300 years after the disappearance of humans, the population of wildlife on Earth has exploded. The nuclear crisis from the meltdowns of year 1 has diminished significantly, and almost all modern buildings have been completely destroyed. After a millennia, almost every above-ground structure is gone. Cities become indistinguishable from forests and meadows, and what remains of steel structures is rust-stained rubble, increasingly buried under soil and vegetation. Forests have returned at a continental scale. Former residential neighborhoods are completely gone and replaced by trees. The structures that would still stand would be things like the pyramids of Giza, the Colosseum, Stonehenge, and the Great Wall of China. 10,000 years after humans have disappeared, CO2 concentration in the Earth's atmosphere will have finally returned to pre-industrial levels. Once we get to 1 million years, almost everything physical is gone, except for maybe Mount Rushmore and the footprints and equipment left behind from our missions to the moon. There will be radioactive isotope anomalies from nuclear testing and reactors embedded in rock layers worldwide. There will be a thin layer in the geological record, showing a period in time during which there were elevated concentrations of carbon, nitrogen, synthetic polymers, and heavy metals baked into the rock record, letting future intelligent species know that once upon a time, millions of years ago, another species was here.
Thank you very much to Jon for narrating that portion of the video. I did try and do it myself, but it sounded very lame, and a British accent makes everything sound better. But what really fascinated me was, in this situation, what comes next? The Earth was here long before humans, and surely it will be here long after us. The dinosaurs dominated this planet for 165 million years, and humans have only been here for about 300,000. Mammals were here during the era of the dinosaurs, but it was their extinction that allowed our species to emerge. Surely with humans off the table, another species could take over. And to get the answers I was looking for, I spoke with a professor of biology at Oxford and the author of A Little History of Everything from the Big Bang to You, Tim Coulson. And the first thing that I wanted to know is, should we assume that another species of primates would take over?
It is, of course, possible that a species of primate might come to conquer the world and take our place, but it's actually quite difficult to predict which species will take the mantle of us if we were to disappear. Imagine you told a T-Rex that the little shrew-like animal scuttling around beneath its feet would evolve over the next 66 million years to become us, the most terrifying predator the planet has ever seen. It probably would have wondered what you were smoking, to be honest. So I'm not convinced that primates will take over the world.
And that is what really got me. There are hundreds of recognized living species of primates right now, and thousands that have existed throughout Earth's history. Why is it that only one has been to space, connected oceans, and built cities? What was it specifically about humans that allowed us to do more in a few thousand years than dinosaurs did with millions?
So language is absolutely key, and it's key because it allows us to pass ideas and information across generations and remembering knowledge, so we can find out knowledge and we can pass it on. So that's critical. But so too are our dexterous fingers. So the fact that we can pick things up, we can manipulate things. And these allow us to make tools. Going back to T-Rex with its short arms and tiny hands and relatively small brains, we think it was probably about as intelligent as a dog. It could never have formed civilization, even if it had language, because it just didn't have the ability to produce tools.
Now, it is important to remember that there are no species alive right now that have all of the qualities necessary to take over humanity's place, and Earth's next dominant species might not even exist yet. Plus, we have no idea what a non-human civilization would even look like. So we do have to use our imagination, but that is exactly why I wanted to know what species Tim thinks could potentially have a shot.
I think it's going to be the time for an invertebrate, and I think it's going to be an animal without a backbone, and I think it's going to be octopuses. But they would have to evolve a few new traits, I think, if they were to succeed. So I would imagine it would be a species of octopus that lives in relatively shallow seas and coastal waters where there's lots of tides going backwards and forwards, so they'd have the energy of the tide of the water moving backwards and forwards to play with. I also think they'd probably need to live a bit longer, because most octopuses only reproduce once and then die, so that makes it quite hard for them to pass on information to their offspring. So they'd need to evolve to live a bit longer and have lots of babies over many different years.
So if you've been watching my channel for a while now, or even been on the sciencey side of the internet, you might remember a story about how octopuses would be the next civilization builders, and that actually stems from another interview with Tim. And I was curious because as someone who is probably more online than I should be, I wanted to know if his comments had anything to do with the whole internet conspiracy about how octopuses are actually aliens, and if he had any comments about those rumors.
Well, so I think the traits that people find about octopuses are the fact they can change the color of their skin, or certainly some species can. They can change the texture of their skin to blend into the background. They can squeeze through small holes because their only hard bit is the sort of mouth parts that they've got. So I think that makes them look a little bit alien. But we know that they're not, because if we look at their genes, all animals on Earth have genes, all plants have genes, all bacteria have genes. And if we look at them, we can see they use the same building blocks of life as we do and as everything else that's living does. So we can actually fit them into the tree of life by comparing their genes to ours and those of E. coli and trees and things like that. So we are very confident that they evolved on Earth and haven't mysteriously appeared from space.
So while it is impossible to say what Earth's next dominant species will be long after humans are gone, I really appreciated the chance to speak with Tim and let my imagination run wild a little bit. If you wanted to check out more of Tim's work, I've linked his book down below. It's called The Science of Why We Exist in North America and A Little History of Everything in the UK. And if you wanted to check out more of my work, you can hit that subscribe button, and I will be back with another video in just a few weeks. I will see you soon.